Hey everybody, today we're going to be disassembling this 940-1 Osborne. It's made by Benchmade. It's quite a nice knife. It's gotten gunked up over the past year or so, and just going to take the blade out and clean the washers and the pivot and everything else. The knife has an access lock that we'll be able to use to pull the blade out without actually taking apart the whole thing. I checked beforehand, and the pivot pin takes a number 9 star drill bit, which I'm putting in the screwdriver now. Just need to take this one screw out, and we'll be able to get the pivot pin out, and the blade should come out right after that. Helps to have the screwdriver set right. Most other knives you need to take apart more completely to get to the blade and washers and bearings and anything else that's on the inside. About to do a jump cut to spare you me relearning how folding knives work for like 3 minutes. I was being a little more over careful than I really needed to be with this part. I didn't want to scratch up the inside, but really it wasn't anything to worry about. The way this locking mechanism works, it puts a bit of spring tension on the pivot, and as I get it loose, I'll eventually pull the blade out a little bit, and that'll just ease up on it. With the pivot out, the blade should just come right out with the washers, and it's pretty simple in there, so not too much to clean. In general, you want to keep everything where it's not going to roll away from you. Especially if you're cleaning a knife that has bearings, you want to make sure all those little balls are tucked away somewhere. Using 70% alcohol, 90% would be better, but I'm just using what I have on hand. You want it to evaporate as quickly as possible, just to avoid corrosion. Get your paper towel good and soaked and just go to town wiping down the blade. Of course, be careful about not sticking yourself with it. This particular blade is made of S90V, which is kind of a super steel. It's very corrosion resistant, so don't really have to worry about the water too much. And here's some movie magic just to skip to it being clean. Next up, we're gonna clean the pivot pin and the 2 washers. Just get the paper towel good and soaked again. Let the alcohol do most of the work for you. And just get around all the edges and everything. Going to wipe down the screw. This isn't really necessary. I was just being thorough. And here are the washers. Well, one of them anyway. Same deal. Get the paper towel good and soaked. And then just use the alcohol to do the work for you again. Clean the insides a bit, and I'm just going to use a Q-tip, and again, the alcohol. Just going to clean around where the washers sit and any of the pins that got gunked up, and forgetting about a washer, I guess. Gotta clean that second washer, and then we'll start reassembling it. I'm going to be using 10 weight nano oil. It's a very good lubricant for metal on metal contact. Putting it on the blade first where the washers are going to come in contact with it. Not going to worry too much about getting it spread super even. Once the knife is together, it'll spread around itself. The oil's going to make the washer stick a little to the blade as well, which will make it a little easier to assemble. And the second one is done. Then I'm going to lubricate where the washer is going to meet the internal lining of the knife. Both sides. I'm gonna skip over where I spent about 4 minutes fiddling with this thing because the pivot pin isn't perfectly round because you don't want it spinning, and I had totally forgotten that. So you need to orient it in a particular way. You need to just get the pivot pin aligned with the washer and then the blade and then the second washer, and just keep fiddling with it until you finally have it all the way through. Once that's done, you can put the screw in. You don't want the screw to be tightened all the way, so I'm going to use some thread lock. That way it'll stay put without having to crank down on it. This turned out to be gunked up, so I just wiped the top layer off. When tightening this down, you want it tight enough so that the blade doesn't wiggle, but loose enough so the action of the blade will move freely. It's just a matter of tightening and testing it and loosening it until you get it just right. I'm giving it some test opens and checking to see how the blade wiggle is. There, got it just about right, and you're basically done at this point. Just gotta clean up all the junk.